Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Diana and I am here to assist you on your journey of spiritual growth and personal development. And this is video number 2 about the attachment theory. In the previous video, I was talking about love versus attachment, and I tried to emphasize how they are different, why they are not the same, and why it is important to understand this difference. Today, I would like to talk more about how our attachment style affects our relationship with ourselves, and in particular, how does it shape our ability to love ourselves, or how it affects self-love, which is such a widely used concept in the spiritual community and beyond. But before I move on, I would like to say that if you would like to work with me on a more personal level, then I do offer private tarot readings. Please feel free to take a look down below for more details. How does our very first relationship with our caregivers shape our ability to love ourselves? Well, the answer to this question is fairly simple. This very first relationship not only shape our understanding of what love feels like, but it also affects how we view ourselves and how we do that with respect of receiving love. Let's say our parents were caring and comforting. They were around and readily available whenever we needed them as an infant. So most of the time, whenever there was a need coming up in our system, it was met in a predictable way. So in time, we started to develop an understanding of our surroundings and those key people around us as safe. And there was hardly ever any conflict with regards to the development of the self, since the behavior of our parents constantly validated our worthiness by meeting our needs. So we were able to move through all the developmental stages babies normally go through, starting off as being totally dependent on our parents for survival and progressing towards becoming more and more autonomous, which is a process of becoming aware of ourselves as separate individuals. The security provided by our caregivers ensured that we were able to develop a more or less healthy view of ourselves. We must be worthy since we constantly have our needs met, and thus we receive love. We are deserving of love because we possess this inherent value that is lovable and very, very precious. This understanding comes easy to us, and maybe we never even question it, since it comes as naturally as breathing. It's a sort of internalized concept our core being is made of. And so we are good to go. But what happens if this is not the case? What if we happen to have an insecure attachment style? In case our parents neglected us and we started to see them as untrustworthy and absent, we may have started to become more and more self-sufficient and self-reliant as a result. We may have started to separate ourselves from them and sort of exclude them from our self-concept as not belonging to us. Unfortunately, even though this may have helped us to preserve our identity, it also comes at the expense of the ability to make loyal and loving partnerships later in our adulthood, which are based on healthy interdependence. However, we still need that love and appreciation. It is just that our worldview has made it so that we can receive that love only from ourselves. That is the only safe source. We know that we cannot rely on others, that they will most likely reject us, and betray us. So we don't even bother and we live our lives behind that wall. We stop caring for what is outside, relationship wise. Instead, we create defense mechanisms and adopt beliefs that help us stay sane and okay under these circumstances. We learn to validate ourselves by ourselves, and we don't let anybody ever tear this self concept down. Maybe even we start putting ourselves above others, again, just to preserve our identity. But is that really a true love we feel for ourselves? No, unfortunately, it is not. The affection we feel for ourselves is based on a lack. It exists as a means to compensate for something very important we didn't receive as little children, which has now created that void deep within us. And most of all, we fear to experience that pain of being rejected again. So we hide behind loving ourselves to protect ourselves from pain. That love, in fact, holds us back from really healing because we don't go where it hurts the most. So that love is nothing but an illusion, even though it may not seem so from the outside. Maybe as a little child you had a hard time deciphering your parents. Sometimes they were there for you, other times they were not, and their behavior towards you was inconsistent for reasons unknown to you. You never knew what to expect, and in time you may have developed a belief that it must be you, it must be something about you, that you are not lovable enough. That must be the real reason why even your own parents don't want to deal with you. You missed them. You were afraid that they would never come back. And maybe you started to develop strategies how to earn their love. You studied them, you became overly sensitive towards and preoccupied with them just to prevent their departure, whether physical or emotional. You exchanged basically your inherent self-worth with a value that can only be earned, and you knew that you were a failure if you couldn't earn the appreciation, love, and security that you so much craved for. Just the opposite from the previously mentioned example with the avoidant attachment style. Here, you know that deep down there is something wrong about you, which is the reason why people keep leaving you or just don't commit. And you work really, really hard to try to please them, to make them stay. What you don't realize, though, is that you also have a void deep within created by that lack of love. It is a sense of unfulfillment you associate with your unworthiness. Unfortunately, trying to earn love externally from others is really doing nothing to help you feel better and more secure deep down. For you, it could have been even worse, and your parents could have even abused you. What if, as a little child, you were locked inside a reality where, on one hand, you depended on your parents for survival, but at the same time, this was linked to pain and suffering of some sort? What if your reality was a torture you had to somehow withstand? Maybe deep down, you crave love more than anything else, but at the same time you have no idea how to get that desire fulfilled. People treat you badly and you think it must be your fault. You are very scared to trust and open up in fear of being hurt, but at the same time you are very scared, even petrified, of others seeing the real you. For once they see the real you, they will also see how bad you really are. and they will treat you just like that. They will once again validate that there is nothing lovable about you. That is a part of your worldview, your view of yourself, and so you hide. Our personal scenarios for each and every one of us may be more complex than I just described and not so straightforward. But I hope that you can see now how not only our relationships with others are affected by those early experiences, but also how we view ourselves. And thus, it has all to do with our ability or inability to love ourselves. So, if we break everything down, we can see that different attachment styles view themselves either positively or negatively, and the same goes for other people. Different styles view others positively or negatively. And this is the four-category model of attachment theory, which looks like this. We have the model of the self, and we can view ourselves either in a positive or negative light. On the vertical axis, we have the model of other, and also here we can view them positively or negatively. That divides the space into four quadrants, each of them corresponding to one of the four attachment styles. The quadrant of having a positive view of both the self and others is occupied by the secure attachment style. Moving to the right, if we still think positively of others, but negatively of ourselves, put the blame on ourselves for not being lovable, we have an anxious or ambivalent attachment style. If we still hold a positive view of ourselves but a negative one of others, that is, if we tend to put the blame on others, we have an avoidant attachment style. And lastly, if we have a negative view both on ourselves and others, we have a disorganized attachment style. According to this model, only the secure attachment style is balanced in a healthy way. So if we look at something like self-love through the lens of attachment theory, we get an idea that probably only the secure attachment style have a more or less undistorted way of understanding what loving oneself feels like in a real, authentic way, because it is something that comes naturally to them. Anxious and disorganized styles, on the other hand, have a negative view of themselves to begin with. So truly loving themselves can be a very hard lesson to learn, as they need to make up for that underdeveloped self-worth in order to be able to love themselves. Avoidant attachment style is even more interesting in my opinion. They have a positive view on themselves, so how can they have a problem with loving themselves? But as I was already mentioning in the example earlier, that is not true love that they feel for themselves. They cannot feel true love because it was never given to them. They don't know how it feels. It is more like a defense mechanism they use to mask the pain underneath, and that requires them to avoid close relationships where there is always a risk of being exposed. So I would say this is the most complicated case to heal, because the first step towards healing would be to recognize the pain, admit that it exists, without having the slightest clue what could be done about that. It's hard, and many people will do whatever it takes to avoid going there. I want to dedicate a whole video for tips that I have found helpful in working with insecure attachment styles, so do stay tuned for that video. But for now, I want to leave you with a list of questions that you can use to explore your relationship with yourself on a more deeper level, and more specifically, to help you understand how and if you love yourself. I have also created a downloadable worksheet with those questions to make it easier for you to do this exercise. That's in the description down below. How would you define what love is? How does it feel for you? What are the sensations in your body when you feel love for something or somebody? Can you recall the last time you felt loved or close to that? What happened and how does it make you feel? How do you feel about yourself? Do you like yourself? Would you be your best friend or a lover if you were somebody else? Why? In what ways do you show appreciation for yourself? How do you make yourself feel better when you're upset or feeling down? What is your usual behavior? What are you saying to yourself? How do you feel about forming close relationships with other people? What do you think it means about you? What happens to you? What do you say to yourself when people reject you? What happens to you? What do you say to yourself when people want to be close to you? If you had a chance to start over, would you like to stay yourself or become somebody else? Why? Be as honest as possible when answering those questions. They will help you explore the way you interact with yourself, but also the world. And I hope it will help you create more love, more real love in your life. Okay, guys, this is it. I'm wishing you a great day ahead and always remember to stay true to yourself and kind to the other. Bye bye.